Welcome to Final Drive, presented by Auto Owners Insurance. Dave Revson, Ashley Adamson, Marcel Reese, Anthony Herron. This is one of those shows I wish we could do like 3 hours instead of 1 hour, because I don't know how we're going to get it all in. My favorite moment of the day is I'm sitting next to you. It's right before Penn State, USC, and Purdue, Illinois are about to go to overtime, and you just start laughing. You sit back and you're like, man, this sport is so freaking good. This sport is so freaking good.
Yeah.
It is so good.
Did he say freaking, by the way?
I think it was definitely.
He
That's
said
what I heard.
I mean, it's late. We're going to admit certain things.
The last 4 Big Ten games of the day, guys, were decided by a total of 9 points. So we had a lot of action, and I'll stop talking. What was your biggest takeaway from today?
That this is the toughest league in the country. This is really good football being played at a fantastically high level. And if you love football, you have to appreciate it, no matter who your team is.
And it's unpredictable. Like, there were games we thought were going to come down to the wire that ended up being blowouts. There were games that were thought to be blowouts that ended up coming down to the wire. So much about this weekend and this day went exactly the opposite of what the script was supposed to.
But the script in Eugene was 2 of the best teams in the country, and that one absolutely lived up to billing. Think about this. AP poll started in 1936. This is just the 10th ever AP top 3 matchup in the Big Ten. Ohio State and Oregon pick it up late in the first quarter. Jordan James taking it in for the touchdown, his 3rd straight 100-yard game. He had a $115. Oregon would botch the extra point snaps. They were down 7-6, and it's Travion Henderson.
Little hezzy getting through the hole with that burst.
53 yards. It's pushed out at the Oregon 4. Bucks, though, a season low 141 rushing yards. A couple plays later, Quinshon Judkins takes it in for the touchdown. Ohio State on top 14-6. Now, early second quarter, Oregon goes 75 yards in 4 plays. Dylan Gabriel to Evan Stewart, capping it off.
Fantastic throw, a place where only his receiver can catch it in the red zone. Throw it at the back of the defender's helmet and let your receiver make a play.
Ducks went for 2, didn't get it. 14-12. Trayshawn Holden there spitting at Davis and Igbinosin. Holden was ejected from the game for unsportsmanlike conduct. Late second quarter now. 15-14 Ducks. Will Howard, Emeka Ibuka. Howard threw for 326. Ohio State back on top, 21-15. Later in the second, the Ducks answer. Gabriel, Tez Johnson behind the defense. They had 4 plays of 30 yards or longer. Ohio State had given up 1 all season coming in. Oregon by 1 at the half. Early third quarter, Howard scrambling, looking. Jeremiah Smith, the outstanding freshman, and Ohio State back on top 28-22. Early fourth quarter on a 3rd and 2. It is Gabriel. He got a lot more than 2. He got 27. And Oregon on top 29-28. Later in the fourth, same score on a 3rd and 7. It's Howard, it's Smith. Ohio State got a field goal out of that. They retook the lead at 31-29. Now less than 2 minutes to go in the fourth. Oregon taking the lead back. Atticus Sappington, 19-yard field goal, gives the Ducks the 32-31 advantage. Now less than 30 seconds to go, Marcel. Jeremiah Smith, you were a college wide receiver. I want to know what you think of this call, offensive pass interference.
I have been in this situation, and you can't penalize a guy for just being stronger than his defender. But a bang-bang play, a tough call for Ohio State and Jeremiah Smith.
Yeah, Buckeyes got backed up there, and now Will Howard needed to be aware of the time. They had a timeout left, but he had to get down. Wasn't able to do it before the clock expired. And Oregon, for the first time ever, beats an AP top 2 team in the regular season, 32-31. Hannah Mears in that massive humanity with the Ducks.
Coach, this was the highest ranked win in program history in front of the largest crowd Autzen Stadium has ever seen. What do you make of what your team just did today?
Well, Autzen showed up tonight, didn't they? How about those fans? Unbelievable atmosphere, great team that we got to go against, an epic battle. That's one of those great football matches, and certainly could have gone either way, but I'm really proud of our team's resiliency, fighting until the very end, just making one more play when it mattered.
Nobody scores that many points against this Ohio State team this year. Your Oregon Ducks did. Why were they able to execute in that way?
Unbelievable plan from our offensive coaching staff, unbelievable execution by our quarterback and our offensive skill and our O-line. We talked about out-rushing this opponent. We were able to out-rush them tonight, right? It mattered. It was a great opportunity for those guys to go out there and execute.
You mentioned that defense, but how much more impressive is that effort knowing you were missing one of your star players in Jordan Birch today?
Hey, we all want to battle for Jordan. He's done so much for this team. You know, so proud of Jordan and what he's done. Can't wait to have him back here with us. But those guys want to go out there and compete for Jordan. They did that tonight.
Your team's undefeated. Where do you go from here?
We go to the doctor. Let's go find an opportunity to get better.
What made your team so effective in this matchup today?
Just belief and trust in one another. You know, you put in all this work, you know, starting from January, you kind of find your identity, and you know, you put it all in for moments like these. So just glad we seized the moment and know it's just a step in the right direction of what we want to accomplish.
Someone else who seized the moment today, Evan Stewart, a career high in receiving yards. Why was your connection with him so explosive today?
You know, I would love to say he's my neighbor. You know, he's right next door, so it's a guy I've been around a bunch, and you know, just the throwing sessions from January. Like I said, it's all the work you put in to seize a moment like this, but you have that built up, you know, trust in one another, and you know, when it's time to make plays, big-time players do it.
That is exactly what the Ducks did in front of an Autzen Stadium record crowd of more than 61,000. Again, this was a game, as we said off the top, that lived up to the hype. Anthony, what impressed you the most about the Ducks' win?
We know they've got weapons. There's no doubt about that. But I was talking about it all week, coming off the performance Ohio State had last week against Iowa. The physicality of Ohio State was going to be a test for everyone on their schedule, but Oregon responded with their own degree of physicality and playmaking. Probably the two most versatile teams in the Big Ten Conference, and I believe we saw that on display tonight. There's a reason this game came down to the critical moments, and Oregon came out on top because they were ready for every haymaker Ohio State threw at them.
All the schedule designers and makers are patting themselves on the back saying, we knew this one would deliver because so many of them don't. And to your point, the physicality. Oregon did it on both sides of the ball. We talked about it earlier. Dave, you mentioned it. Held Ohio State to the lowest amount of rushing yards this season, but still over 100 plus. But you're not going to stop a team like Ohio State. You can merely hope to slow them down. Oregon did it. And on the flip side, they ran the ball extremely efficiently and had some explosive runs in the process.
And Jordan James, I think we talked about him. He was coming off a career day against Michigan State. And Oregon also had an extra day to prepare. Ohio State came out. We know that these teams may meet again. But to me, the way that Jordan James ran the ball, Dylan Gabriel able to do what you know he does. But what stood out to you about the way that he got it done?
Well, Dave mentioned the 60,000 plus at Autzen. I mean, that was a record for their stadium. So they had a lot to feed off of from the crowd that was in the house today. But Jordan James is the engine of this football team. When he's rolling, when the run game is cooking for the Ducks, they're just a different football team. Yes, they can score, they can get out in the open field, but the energy that he plays with, the enthusiasm that he finishes runs with, he's not the biggest back on the field between the two teams. There's so much talent that littered the turf there at Autzen Stadium today, but he was certainly the guy who finished everyone, got every ounce out of himself. Every time he touched the rock, you could tell how much his teammates feed off of that. When Jordan James is running that way, playing that way, coming off of the career high that you mentioned from last week, AA, if they get that week in and week out, then it's a different type of Oregon squad because they can control the tempo of the game in the way that they choose.
You know what impresses me most about the way James runs the ball is his patience to the line of scrimmage and then his explosiveness through the line of scrimmage.
Yeah.
As a runner.
Slow to it, faster.
Yes.
Right?
It's a phrase that you say in the offensive line room and the running back room, but it's so important to let your linemen get up on those defensive linemen and then work up to the second level to linebackers so you can explode through the line of scrimmage and have explosive runs. And that's what you witnessed tonight.
And let's give a ton of credit to that offensive line, right? I mean, we were wringing our hands at the beginning of the year. They didn't run the ball very well in those first couple games. They were giving up sacks left and right. This was the fourth straight game they haven't given up a sack. And as Dan Lanning talked about, they ran for more yards in this game than the Buckeyes did. How about the Buckeyes? We all know what the stakes are for Ohio State this year. I mean, the phrase has been national championship or bust. They haven't necessarily said that, but it's been associated with them, and I think the expectation is when you talk about, hey, a $20 million team, like the expectation is this is a team, we're trying to win a national championship, and when anything short of that just won't do. They can still do that, but Marcel, what does this mean for Ohio State? What do you take from the Buckeyes' loss?
I think at the end of the day, you just have to be able to put it in perspective and understand that it is hard to win football games. It is not easy, no matter who your team is or no matter how much the payroll is right now. And you finally look at this and say, we have film to learn from a loss. We faced adversity. We faced a really good roster. And this is what it's going to look like in the playoffs, no matter how many teams there are. So now we have an opportunity to say we've been challenged, now adjust from those challenges. And I think the biggest thing they're going to be able to learn is the clock management. Like those little things that are going to make the difference for them going down the stretch.
I also think, I remember 10 years ago, we were at that Oregon-Ohio State national championship game, and I remember leaving feeling like the Ducks don't have what the Buckeyes have. And it looks different.
They do now.
They do now. They do now. And we saw it tonight.
Yeah, really, really impressive performance by Oregon. Give them a ton of credit. Ohio State gets by. They will try to figure things out. Oregon heads out. They will take on Purdue coming up on Friday night.
We remember when these teams last met in the 2017 Rose Bowl. It was an instant classic. They meet again today as Big Ten foes. Penn State, USC. Quentin Joyner, he had that costly fumble against Minnesota last week. Well, he more than makes up for it in the early going. 75-yard house call. USC finished with 189 rushing yards in this one. They're up 7-3. Second quarter in the red zone. Miller Moss to Joyner for his second touchdown of the day. Trojans up 26. Feeling good.
A laugher.
How about this play, Ant?
Wait a minute now. So he's not a center, but
Warren.
He is Tyler Warren, so he's kind of everything.
He does everything. He lines up at center. He lines up at quarterback. He lines up at wide receiver.
Ooh.
He snaps the ball from center and he catches.
I don't care what the play is. You go up and get that.
Fingertips off the helmet after snapping the ball to your quarterback.
Andy Kotelnicki playing flag football out here. Fourth quarter, Moss to Kyron Hudson. So Trojans up 30-23 with 6 to play. And this was a clinic. This Penn State drive, 2 huge fourth down conversions, both of them going from Aller to Julian Fleming. And that sets up this. Nick Singleton, it is nice to have him back, Marcel.
Absolutely, but someone needs to guard him in the red zone.
Be a good idea.
All even at 30. 14 seconds to go. USC with the ball near midfield. Moss.
Tips and overthrows.
Yeah, you cannot have either of those when you're trying to close out a game.
Jalen Reed picks it off, and so one last chance for the Nittany Lions. Aller throws up a Hail Mary, but it's picked off. Ryan Quintanner. And we are headed to overtime.
Got free football coming.
Free football at the Coliseum. Trojans, 3rd and 13. Moss to Jacoby Lane. That is no good. He's looking for a flag, but will not get one, so they settle for the field goal. Michael Lance, no good from 45 yards out, and USC fans can feel it. Penn State just needs a field goal. Ryan Barker made his first start last week, and he's the hero tonight as Penn State comes back to take down the Trojans. They head into the bye week 6-0. Drea Avon with the winners.
Drew, emotional win for you. What did you tell Coach right now? I saw you hug him. Tears started to form in your eyes. What did you say to him just now?
I didn't do any talking. It was all Coach Franklin, but there's no other guy that I'd rather go to war with in all of America and really the whole world. I love Coach Franklin, everything he's done for me and my family, and everything he's done for every single person in this locker room. I mean, he gets a lot of bash online from people that have no idea what the amount of work that we put in it, especially him. Like, he has built this thing from the ground up, and there's no other coach that I'd rather go to war with.
You guys showed a lot of grit in all 3 phases of the game. What did you think about what you guys were able to show on the national stage today? Yeah, I mean, I think offensively, for me, I got to clean up my turnovers. It is what it is, but thankfully, we have the best defense in America on my back. I had the best Mike linebacker in America back in the defense when I gave up 2 turnovers, holding on to 6 points, just 2 field goals, and then, allowing me to go down and tie the game in regulation. And they did a great job sealing it in regulation and also in overtime.
Just really happy for our guys. Overcame so much today. Found different ways to have success and win. defense struggled, offense had their back, offense struggled, defense had their back in the first quarter. Special teams were huge. What about Barker? Walked on at our place, has earned a starting job and comes through for us right there. Awesome.
There's two good football teams going at it. Came down to the last play, and again, it hurts obviously to not be able to get this done. We've had obviously a few games like this where we've had chances to win right there at the end, and to not make the plays, not have some of the breaks bounce your way. It's a gut punch. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, so second straight week, USC feels like they got punched in the gut. And we talked about coming in. This felt like a gut check game for Lincoln Riley and the Trojans. And here they are, 1-3 in Big Ten play. But I want to talk about what Penn State was able to do. Slow starts have been an issue, Anthony. We've seen that. But they came back again, forced overtime, and they get it down. You saw the emotion in the post-game interviews from Drew Aller and James Franklin. What did you learn about the Nittany Lions today?
Well, it's a program that has felt like they're building towards something for several seasons now, just kind of working through a lot of in-game moments together. And this was a big game, even though USC wasn't ranked anymore at this point. But, to travel across the country, there's a lot of eyeballs on what Penn State has the potential to accomplish this season. And they went out there, and yes, they did lay an egg in the first half of that game, but found a way to fight back. That grit, Dre Avent was talking about it in the postgame, the grit they showed, those are the types of things that should pay dividends later in the season.
Yes, and this is a really good USC roster, and it's very hard to come back on a team that is that explosive and has the athletes that they have. And we keep saying it week in and week out. Penn State keeps finding ways to win games, and they found a different way today by playing from behind against a USC team that was poised and primed for a huge win and got it, and Penn State ends up getting it done at the end.
And by feeding Tyler Warren, 17 receptions for 224 yards, 17 receptions is tied for the most ever by a tight end in college football. Quick thought on USC, it's now 10 losses in 21 games. Again, they've been close losses here recently, but the expectation is for better than that, as we know, at USC. The
expectation is sky high for SC from this city and from that team. At some point, Lincoln Riley has to get that group and say, I'm tired of saying we're this close. Let's finish games and make it happen. Players have to step up. Coaches have to step up.
I did really like the game plan offensively, the performance defensively, taking the ball away from Drew Aller. We know how he's protected the football so far in his Penn State career. And they manufactured a run game.
And Woody Marks was great.
Woody Marks was
outstanding.
I don't know that the O-line was much better than they have been, but they found a way to scheme up the run. There are a lot of positives on film for the Trojans.
They will head to Maryland next week. Meanwhile, Purdue and Illinois, the 100th meeting between these two, it turned out to be the highest scoring one in the history of this matchup. We pick it up in the fourth quarter. Illini, in a game they had led 27-3. Luke Altmaier takes it himself. They're up 34-20 now. Following drive, it's Ryan Brown who started for the injured Hudson Card, hits Jerron Tibbs for the 8-yard touchdown. Boilermakers went for two and got it. It was 34-28. Just over 5 minutes to go. Josh McCray takes it in. They went for two, didn't get it. So it's 40-28. Devin Maccabee over the pile. Purdue within 5. Ensuing kickoff now. Purdue going onside, and the Illini unable to
loose ball.
Teron Grant gets it, and Purdue retakes possession under a minute to go. It's Brown, who was fabulous in this game, hits Maccabee. Purdue went for two and got it, so they're up 43-40, but the Illini able to drive down. David Alano from 38 sends it into overtime, tied at 43. First play of overtime, Illini going for the jugular. Altmaier, how about this catch back in the end zone by Pat Bryant, Marcel?
Oh, my goodness. At the high point, you love to see a receiver go get the ball at the high point and take it away from the defender.
So up 50-43, Purdue on a first and goal. Armand Branch on the end around. And now the Boilermakers decide not to kick the extra point. They're going to go for two and the win.
Give yourself a chance. Throw it.
Come on, Ryan.
Throw it, Ryan.
Throw it.
Illinois survives. They capture the meaningful yet diminutive Cannon Trophy, 50-49. Elise Menaker with the Illini.
Coach, I mean, what a game here. Nothing comes easy. in the Big Ten. Just take me through that final play. Your defense coming up huge.
Well, it's great for them to have some justification. Obviously did enough things to try and lose this game. We let a team like that hang around. We had them put away, and that's just not the way we want to play it. So great for our guys to persevere and win. Now we got a big one coming up. A lot of resiliency, give a lot of credit to our guys, our coaches. We took the field there, obviously down by 3. I said, hey, we get this ball in the 25. We got a field goal, get it to overtime, and it's exactly what we did. And really excited, give credit to our guys. Got the trophy back home where it belongs. Congratulations to Purdue. They had a great effort, but a better one here today.
I'm just happy for my teammates, these fans, and our coaching staff. We haven't seen it in I don't know how many years, but it's been a while. So glad to have it in our case in our locker room.
You pour a lot into it, and guys are fighting for you. You claw your way back when we haven't done that this year. So would have loved to win that game. We got to do more.
They scored 46 points after halftime. They had scored 44 points in their 4 games against FBS teams combined before this game. So let's give a ton of credit to Purdue. A far better effort than we saw from them a week ago, and very easily could have won the game. It was Illinois that did win it. Marcel, what did you take from the Illini's victory?
For when you see a well-coached football team, you don't expect to see them give up 46 points in the second half to a reeling team like Purdue. But at the end of the day, them being well-coached ends up edging out Purdue at the end of the game, because this team, Purdue was up to the challenge in the second half. We have watched them and seen them almost kind of give up at the end of games. They didn't give up. They fought back. Illini ended up just finishing the game.
Luke Altmaier has been dialed in this season in a way that many of us didn't anticipate. It's good to have a returning starter in Big Ten football and major college football in general, but this is a level of play from Luke Altmaier that continued today to carry a ball club. And then he was supported by a run game that has been up and down so far this season with no Caden Fagan in the lineup. Wasn't sure exactly what to expect from the Illini rushing attack. So you have that combination in a game where their defense was struggling. Man, Luke Altmaier, I got to say, hats off to the way he's played so far.
Brian and Franklin on the edges, too. They're really good wide receivers for Altmaier.
First win over the Boilermakers at home since 2010, by the way, and Purdue, hat tip to them for fighting all the way back. They've got Oregon on a short week. They're playing the Ducks on Friday.
No rest for the week.
That was a deep breath, Dave.
It's crazy to think you score more than 40 points in the second half and you don't win the game. They're the first Big Ten team in more than 20 years to do that. Kirk Ferentz looking to make some history, looking for win number 200 as the head coach of the Hawkeyes as Iowa face Washington. There is the aforementioned Mr. Ferentz. Pick it up in the first quarter. Scoreless game. Grady Gross has been struggling a little bit. Has his kick blocked there by Y.A. Black. Iowa takes over and marches right down the field. Caleb Johnson takes it in from 6 yards out. He ran for $166. Fifth time in 6 games he has gone over 100. He's been tremendous this year. Will Rogers, Denzel Boston, speaking of tremendous, 9th touchdown of the year. Big Ten leader in receiving TDs. Huskies even it up at 7. Cade McNamara, Caleb Johnson. McNamara's first touchdown pass against a power conference team as a Hawkeye. They led it 20-10 at the half. To the third quarter, Rogers, one of 2 Huskies turnovers. Jamari Harris brings it back to the 46-yard line, and the Hawkeyes would get a field goal out of that, go on top 23-10. Johnson, his 3rd touchdown, 2nd time in 3 weeks. He has scored 3 touchdowns. Iowa on top 30-10. This one turned into a laugher. McNamara, Dayton Howard, 33 yards as the Hawks win it 40-16. Ferentz moves into sole possession of 2nd place on the all-time Big Ten wins list. Does get number 200. He spoke about it with Allison Williams.
How would you describe the way all 3 phases stepped up to deliver this victory?
Just a lot of good efforts by a lot of people. Imperfect. We missed a couple opportunities, but we play better if all 3 phases are working together. I thought the kicking game really made a big difference in the first half.
Your offensive coordinator, Tim Lester, told us this week was the best the offense has looked. What allowed that unit to click and play so well?
I think it's just maturity and getting comfortable. It's a whole new system. We've got good guys, older guys, and I think they're trying to show the other guys how to come along. So we're getting better. We're not there yet.
Coach Ferentz, this is your 200th win, second most in this storied conference. Can you just describe what it means to you?
Probably means I'm getting old. And in all honesty, I mean, the biggest thing today was just getting back on our feet and, competing and winning a football game. So just really proud of our guys, the way they responded.
Did you feel any emotion when they announced your 200th win to the crowd here?
Yeah, it got me a little bit. And it's applicable that our 04 team was here being honored. Jonathan Bobineau, two season-ending injuries. So when he was played 12 years in the NFL. What a quality guy. He was an honorary captain. Kind of represents the spirit of that 04 team. And, it's going to be that kind of season for us. We're going to have to just keep pushing along.
Congratulations on a special win. Thanks, Coach.
Again, a milestone win for Ferentz, not just getting to that even number of 200, but passing the great Amos Alonzo Stagg from the early days of the Big Ten at the University of Chicago. And now he has Woody Hayes in his sights. Were Iowa to get to 10 wins, which remember they did a year ago, Kirk Ferentz would be alone all time atop the Big Ten wins list. And Ant, pretty impressive performance offensively from Iowa. It feels like they are finding their footing. What stood out to you about this performance?
I am familiar with the Kirk Ferentz methodology, as you know, and this game had quite the pristine Kirk Ferentz sensibilities to them. And after last week, where Ohio State, frankly, was able to control the line of scrimmage against the Iowa Hawkeyes in a way that most of us didn't anticipate going into that game, Iowa responded. They got back to Kinnick Stadium, got back in front of that home crowd, and they were able to push around Washington on the line of scrimmage in a way that most of us didn't anticipate. I mean, the line of scrimmage went advantage Hawkeyes, and where a lot of times the passing attack in Iowa City, Dave, it kind of feels like, remember the movie Footloose, where dancing gets outlawed at a certain point? You're like, hey, are they allowed to complete forward passes? Today they did, and it
completed them for touchdowns. Even.
Yes, and it wasn't to exponential success, but it doesn't need to be for the Hawkeyes to have success. We saw it today.
No, absolutely. Really impressive, the job they did against what has been an outstanding Washington defense. And to put up 40 points, most against a power conference opponent in 3 years. That was a good performance out of the Hawks. They head to Michigan State coming up next week. Ashley?
I just want to say that was great producing by Rob to not have Ant and Marcel in that segment together. Like that was just
gonna get a little dicey.
Yeah, could have get a little dicey. We had to separate them for this one. But we want to talk about Wisconsin and Rutgers because this was going to be an interesting game. The Badgers coming off that huge offensive explosion against Purdue last week. The Rutgers team coming off a tough loss against Nebraska. Braden Locke to Will Pauling. Check out this double move.
Gotta love the hitch and go in the red zone. Get the ball up, receiver goes and gets it.
Unfortunately, Pauling would leave the game later with an injury, but plenty of firepower elsewhere. How about Tawi Walker? We're going to talk a lot about him. 14-0, Badgers on top. 20 seconds left in the half. Rutgers trying to get on the board, but the kick is blocked. The ball is free. Wisconsin can't scoop it cleanly and has to fall on the ball, and it's just a bad snap.
That's the sound of a block kick, and no special team coordinator likes to hear that sound.
So Rutgers still down 14-0 at the half. Third quarter, same score. Locke launching one downfield. Vinny Anthony, the second in stride. It's a 47-yard pickup, and Darian Dupree would punch it in on the very next play. 549 total yards of offense. Walker, he accounted for 198 of them.
We call that
Badgers win their second game in a row. 42-7 the final. Brooke Fletcher with the winners.
Coach, how have you seen this offense's identity really take shape, especially over the last two games?
I think they're seeing more balance, relying upon those big guys up front and establishing some things running the football, as well as be able to take some shots down the field. And this is a complementary football we were talking about. I was a little disappointed in the last 2 minutes of that first half that I think we really needed to take advantage of, but we came out the second half and did what we needed to do.
What do you make of the game Phil Longo called, putting this offense in a position to succeed?
He's doing a great job, and I know there were challenges all the way through, right? I mean, the sign of a good coach, the sign of a good team is guys that continue to get better, and this is a team that continues to get better because of the leadership in that locker room. They're want to, and then everybody around us, they're want to as well.
I can't say nothing but thank my O-line and thank my running back coach and my running back room for showing the utmost support, and I wouldn't rather be nowhere else. The ceiling's so high for this run group because I think you missing about 3 names that can do the same things we do, as explosive as us, so it's just you can only play so many people in a game, but this running back room ceiling is through the roof.
So Badgers now 6-0 all-time against Rutgers, and we talked about that man, Tawee Walker. He has been phenomenal. 8 touchdowns in the last 3 games, and you look at the numbers of what he was able to today. What stands out to you about the way this man plays?
I just love the physicality that he plays the game with, the passion that he plays the game with. The way you can tell about the passion the runner plays with is, does he finish runs? And Tawee Walker finishes runs. That means every time he gets tackled, he's moving forward, never moving backwards, never a stalemate. He's not running out of bounds freely and unsolicited. He is finishing runs every single time, and that makes defenders make a business decision. I was really impressed with Wisconsin all the way around. One, you see 24 carries. That means that offensive coaching staff was dedicated and committed to establishing the run game. 198 yards. We've been critical on that offensive line. They stepped up against a really physical Rutgers team. I was really impressed with Wisconsin's win today.
Yeah, Wisconsin's offense has now scored 94 points total in the last 2 weeks, and Rutgers 14 total points in the last 2 games. A real quick thought on where they go from here?
Rutgers has a decision to make. What team are we going to be? Are we going to be the team in the first 3 weeks or the team the last 2 weeks? They can only make that determination.
All right, we are moving on. Final drive, still much more to come. Our auto owners insurance game leaders from the dandy that we saw in Autzen Stadium. 2 quarterbacks throwing up big-time numbers, but in the end, it's Dylan Gabriel and the Ducks getting the best of the Buckeyes. Just the 3rd road loss for Ohio State under Ryan Day. More reaction from Eugene.
We want to leave no doubt, and I felt like we should have done that tonight. We did not, and so then you put it in the hands of a call, and you don't get it, and that's on us. It should never come down to that situation. We had too many X plays tonight. We turned the ball over in the first half, and it cost us. And so we got to do a better job of handling those situations and playing better overall. Just too many explosive plays on a defensive side.
We got a big saying. It's like, we all connected and, everybody just wait for their turn. Everybody do their job and, things will pan out. So that's all I was doing, just doing my job on the team. And, tonight was just a night. They always told us this week that they haven't really seen anybody like us. And, when you look at the film from their past games, that's the truth. So, we just went into this game knowing, we are who we are, and they ain't seen us yet. So we going to give them a show.
Oregon is 6-0. They'll play at Purdue on Friday. Meanwhile, a dandy at the Rose Bowl, Minnesota, UCLA Gophers' first trip to Pasadena in 62 years. It didn't start well, but they came out firing in the 3rd. That was Darius Taylor. The touchdown gave Minnesota a 14-10 lead. 4th quarter, Ethan Garbers to J. Michael Sturdivant, who had a terrific game. 17-14, Bruins back on top. Final minute of the 4th, Max Brosmer to Darius Taylor. He walks into the end zone, and so the Gophers back on top 21-17. Garbers looking for something in the late going, but the 2nd straight week, it's the freshman Coy Parrish with the game-sealing interception in the end zone, his 2nd pick of the night, and it gives the Gophers their first road win.
This is college football. It's never going to be 100% pretty. This team has fought, scratched, clawed, rode the boat all year. I mean, it's unbelievable what this team's been able to do and overcome. A lot of people would have just quit by then. And they're just resilient. They always believe. And that antidote's still working. This is what's amazing just about life, is that these gentlemen are going to be husbands, fathers, businessmen, teachers, lawyers, community workers, and do a lot for their community. It's not always going to go your way. It really isn't. And this is a 60-minute game, but that's kind of like life over a course of 3-4 years, all within 60 minutes. And this is teaching them so much more about life. The win's great, but this is a huge life lesson for our kids.
The biggest thing was protection. Make sure I was protecting Max so he could get a pass off regardless if it was to me or someone else. And then once I knew that my protection was, I didn't have a protection responsibility, I just leaked out into the flat and, the ball came to me and I just made the play. The road bowl culture is always just keep rowing. That's the biggest thing in our program, just keep rowing. So, that culture in itself and him teaching us that on a daily basis and keeping us consistent to that standard is the biggest thing that's getting us here today.
It has indeed. PJ Fleck used the word resilient, guys, and it certainly applies to this team. The last 2 weeks, Minnesota needed late-game heroics, and they got them both times.
They did, and they really kind of take on the personality of their head coach as well, where they keep rowing the boat. They keep saying that term, but they're actually believing in it. And this team stepped up at the end of this game to really propel them to win, because UCLA was up to the challenge and just couldn't get it done at the end. I was really impressed with some of their playmakers, particularly Darius Taylor. Didn't have the numbers we talked about him having, but at big times he stepped up. But really, Daniel Jackson.
Those strong hands out of the wide receiver position. And you're not going to get a million different targets in the current Minnesota offense, but when you throw the ball near Daniel Jackson, he finds a way to come up with it. And this is the type of game that Minnesota fans have seen the Gophers lose. When you're coming off a big win, an emotional win, and then an opponent who maybe you should be able to hold off. They haven't always held off in recent years. They were able to get it done tonight.
I will say this. In the close games, they've won more than their fair share. 21st time in the last 31 one-possession games that it's the Gophers who have come out on top. Bruins, meanwhile, 5th straight loss, their longest skid in 7 years.
The shooters shoot. I know Klay Thompson has a quote and Michael Jordan has a quote. And for me, I'm going to throw interceptions. It's bound to happen playing this position. And, you know, I just got to keep shooting my shot and just playing loose and playing free.
They don't bother me, but I know that, you know, at some point in time, guys that have incredible pride in what they do and in their program, it does bother them. And, you know, but you can't do anything about it other than continue to battle and work and, you know, maybe have an opportunity to write your own story.
So Josh McCray, a lot of you probably know this, I know you guys really follow, was my literally first offer, right? He always means a lot to me. And Josh has gone through so much. Everything keeps telling him that he's going to get beat down, and he just keeps getting back up.
Jordan, man, he runs like he's pissed off all the time. And we see it every day in practice. You know, before the game started, he came up to me and said, "Coach, I got you." Right? And I know when he says that, he meant it. Jordan was a beast tonight. I'm really proud of him.
Some really good emotion there in the post-game of what was a wild day of games. It lived up to the hype. The early games maybe weren't all that close, but, man, we had some drama down the stretch and social media reflecting that. And so now it is time to sum it all up, as we often do, with the final drive. One thought on each and every team from this weekend. Marcel, you lead us off. A wild win for the Fighting Illini.
Yes, a very well-coached football team. We say it week in and week out. Tested in the second half, but ended up figuring it out and getting a huge win against a Purdue team.
Your team got a big win against his team, Iowa, with a milestone win over Kirk Ferentz. I'm just saying the facts. The Hawkeyes, what would you like to say?
I mean, the way that the game went, it was according to script. According to the Kirk Ferentz script, where you want to control the line of scrimmage, you want to make sure that you try to squeeze the life out of that opponent. The line of scrimmage for the Iowa, the defensive front, getting blocked field goals and everything else. The offensive line getting back to who they want to be.
They went off script a little, scoring 40 points. But
exactly.
That's an approved script.
Bit out of character.
He certainly likes that script. Let's get into the Friday night game. Maryland, really just a
we keep
poor
saying it,
performance.
just not being able to figure it out in league games. They play really well out of league and just really couldn't figure it out, and just not a good performance. They have to get back to the drawing board, get back to the fundamentals, tackle, and play good offensive football.
Minnesota, they started 0-2 in league play. They now have back-to-back conference wins, feeling good heading into the bye week.
It seems like they're surging. At a time where a team kind of needs to surge around mid-season, Minnesota figuring out who they are. Still not exactly the line of scrimmage they're hoping for, but, man, they're starting to play better.
And as PJ Fleck said after the game, they need that bye, a little bit beaten up.
Yeah.
Northwestern, the flip side of the game we were talking about with Maryland, what a great win for them. They get back to 500 with a huge road win.
Yes, Dave. I talked about this last week. They had the upward trajectory. Jack Louch really good in the passing game, throwing for 3 touchdowns and finding something. But Mac Uline, 13 tackles on defense, really leading that defense. So it was a great win for Northwestern.
All right, we're in the 2-minute drill here. Ohio State comes up just short on the road in a classic.
A lot to learn for the Buckeyes. Still everything out in front of the guys from Columbus.
Just their 8th loss in their last 103 conference games. It is amazing. Flip side of that game, Oregon, Marcel.
Figuring it out. Oregon Ducks are here to stay and claim their place at top of the poll. They're going to be a force to be reckoned with down the stretch of the season.
We think Penn State's going to be a force to be reckoned with as well. They stay undefeated today.
We heard it from Drew Aller. Shooters shoot. Yes, he's going to throw some interceptions. The run game for the most part this season has been dominant. Not as much today.
6-0 for the second straight year. Purdue, man, they put up a great fight.
Yes, we didn't see them give up. They are fighting. Think they found their new quarterback. The offense looked better. They're moving forward.
Rutgers offense did not look good for the second straight week. They've got some things to figure out.
They're going to look at a positive. The defense is starting to play better in recent weeks. They need to balance it out more.
Yeah, but just 7 points each of the last 2 weeks. UCLA, tough late loss.
Just a tough loss. They have to get better and stay better in the second half. Make cleaner offensive and defensive play.
And it was a tough loss for the other LA team across town. What did you make of USC?
Really liked the way they tried to manufacture a run game schematically. They found some balance. It wasn't there offensively previously.
Washington, tough loss for the Huskies. I know you didn't want to talk about it a moment ago. You have to talk
Huskies
about it.
just have to figure it out. Let's fit up the run, play sound defense, and continue to play good offense. Back to protecting the football.
And then let's end on a high note with Wisconsin, who has found their offense under Braden Locke.
Braden Locke showing some tempo, the way he can feed the ball around a little bit. Tyree Walker getting out of things.
At Northwestern and then Penn State, so some good games to come.
Yep.
But this show is not over yet. We'll be